Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances, dear devotees. Welcome to His Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaj's daily call. We are so glad you're here. Can you hear me? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji, we can hear you.
Thank you. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Dear devotees, we are on 12th canto, chapter 2, and we are picking up again from verse number 37. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All yours, Guru Maharaj.
My name is Candramauli Swami.
Yes, Maharaj.
Candramauli Swami. Who's Guru Maharaj? Who's that guy?
Maharaj, please forgive me. I'm a little nervous today.
My program has been to forgive you for the last 2 decades. So we are beginning the new year, 3rd decade to begin, okay? All right. Forgive. Forgive and don't forget. Om Gyan Timidandasya Gnanajana Salakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasnaya Bhutale Srimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavari Asyatya De Satarine Vanshikopa Tarubhischa Kripa Sindhu Pevacha Hitanam Palanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Hare Hare Shiva Sri Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Devaki Samitur Bharta Bharata Maruschekvaku Vamsajaha Alapa Brahma Asate Mahayoga Bala Alanvito. So we're hearing about the 2 kings that are actually there waiting to take the throne once Kalki comes and does his job of removing the demons. These 2 kings, Devapi, the brother of Maharaj Santanu, and Maru, the descendant, they both possess great mystic strength and are living even now in the village of Alapa. Vaihaitya Kalir Anta Vasudeva Nusiksito Vanashrama Yuta Dharmam Purvavad Pratayasyataha. At the end of the age, these 2 kings have received instructions directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva, will return to human society and reestablish the eternal religion of man, characterized by the divisions of Varna and Ashram, thus as it was before. According to this, in the previous verses, 2 great kings who will reestablish human culture at the end of Kali Yuga have already been descended to earth, where they are patiently waiting to render their devotional service to Lord Vishnu. So they're there now. Kritam Treta Dorha Vipar Kritam Treta Darparam Cha Kalis Cheti Chatu Yugam Anena Krama Yogena Uvi Pranishu Vartate. The cycle of the four ages, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali, continues perpetually among living beings on this earth, repeating the same general sequence of events. Rajanatam Maya Proktam Anara Devas Tatat Pare Bhumo Mama Tvam Kritvante Hitramam Nidanam Gataha. My dear King Parikshit, all these kings I have described, as well as all of the human beings, come to this earth and stake their claim. But ultimately, they must all give up this world and meet their destruction. Tamivin Vasa Samjante Rajanamo Tiyasyacha Utadrik Utadrak Parkritam Swartam Kim Vedan Nirayo Yataha. Even though a person's body may now have the designation of king, in the end, its name will be worms, stool, or ashes. What can a person who injures other living beings for the sake of his body know about his own self-interest? Since his activities are simply leading him to hell. Purport. After death, the body may be burned and eaten by worms, may be thrown in the street or to be eaten by the animals who will pass out its remnants as stool, or may be burned and converted into ashes. Therefore, one should not pave his way to hell by using his temporary body to injure the bodies of other living beings. In this verse, the word beta includes non-human life forms, who are also creatures of God. One should give up all envious violence and learn to see God in everything by the process of Krishna consciousness. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shivakti Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvisesa Sundivari Pastyatya Devi. So it's mentioned in the Shastras. In every life, one gets a body, and that body is provided by a mother and a father. Sometimes that body is in the aquatics, sometimes it's in the animals, sometimes in the birds, and sometimes it's in human form. Of course, other bodies are also created, but not necessarily in the same way, such as plants, creepers, insects, and others. So there are 8,400,000 species of life, and each one is a particular type of body in one of the 5 categories as described by the listings of the different types of bodies. All of these bodies are made in a combination of different elements: earth, water, air, fire, ether, mind, intelligence, and small seed. 3 gross, which is 5 gross and 3 subtle. Mind, intelligence, and ego are creations of the subtle body. And when one thinks, feels, wills, discriminates, and identifies. That's the subtle body. In the gross body, we have a combination of flesh, bones, various other ingredients, such as blood. And so the body is made out of earthy substances, watery substances. There are various airs in the body. There are 10 airs in the body, 5 primary and 5 secondary airs, which conduct the activities of the body. And fire is also in the body for digestion. And so we have, and then of course there is space. These are the five gross elements. All of these are combinations, all bodies are combinations of these 8 elements. Some 5, some more, 6, 7, and 8, depending on the type of body. So a body is simply made out of these elements. Within that combination, there is the soul, which gives animation and activity to the body. So that soul is completely unique and distinct in both character and substance from the body that it inhabits. That soul is pure spiritual energy. It's eternal, full of knowledge, and it's also experiences unlimited happiness. That particle of element is not created at any time, nor does it get destroyed at any time, because it's connected to the supreme source of existence, which is pure spiritual energy, who is the source, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam, Eko Bahudam Viradati Kama. Krishna, or the Supreme Lord, is the supreme eternal, and he maintains all of the other eternals. So his existence is the source of all of the other existence, both material and spiritual. And he creates these elements, earth, water, fire, air, earth, and mind, intelligence, as he says in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhumera Panalo Bayu Kamano Buddha Vicha Hankar Iti Ame Vina Prakriti Astida. But then he goes on, Aparaya Iti Twanyas, Vidive Param Jiva Bhuta Mahaboho, Yedam Jayate Jagat. But there's another source of existence, and that is the real source of existence, which are my parts and parcels, the living entities, which are not different than me in quality, but different in quantity. So our real identify is on the spiritual level. We have no material identity. Although we adopt a material identity in the form of the association with the material world, which is also a creation of these same elements. So there is no life in the created world, but there's life in the manifested existence, which is of the spiritual nature. So it says here, when the body dies, it goes back to its basic elements. If it gets buried into the ground, it starts to decompose, and worms eat it. It's thrown in a place where there's animals. Animals may eat the body and then pass stool, and the body becomes the stool of an animal. Or if it's burned and is converted into ashes, just like many times in India, they burn the body in holy places. And it's just a pile of ashes. So, therefore, what is this temporary body? What is it meant for? Why do we have the material body? Well, we have the material body because we want to live in this world and to present ourselves as being different than who we actually are. We want to experience life in a place where there is no eternality, no real happiness, and no, what we say, real knowledge or actual knowledge. And so we have this body made out of this combination. So here this verse is saying that, why should we use this body, which is just a combination of these elements, and we'll go back to these elements once it's to cause harm to other persons in this material world. And so one has to learn to give up, as it says here, envy is violence, and learn to see God in everything by the process of Krishna consciousness. For seeing God in everyone is a reflection of our clear consciousness, which is the nature of the soul, and not this temporary body that sees the forms in this world as being different and all animated by the mind and the senses. So we live in a world of illusion. We live in a world of ignorance, and we identify with these things as being real, and therefore we become subjected to these same qualities as ignorance, illusion. Therefore, it says that all conditioned souls, or all living beings in the material world, make four mistakes. Their senses are imperfect, and they have a tendency to become illusion. They make mistakes. Their senses are imperfect. They become illusion, and they have a tendency to deny the fact that they make mistakes and present themselves as being very great, intelligent persons and qualified in so many ways, and therefore they practice the cheating process. So this world, if you look at it from all angles of vision, is just a prison house or a madhouse where nobody knows who the hell they are, what they're doing, or why they're doing what they're doing. You ask them why they're doing what they're doing. Well, to enjoy life, but nobody's enjoying life. So then it comes back to the same question: what are you doing? So this is the material world. It's considered to be a crazy house, where if you walk into these designed crazy houses in the world today, you see people. They talking all kinds of nonsense, and they're presenting themselves as somebody who they're not. The person in the crazy house might claim to be Jesus Christ, or Napoleon, or George Washington, or somebody who they're not, at least on the material level. And you think, wow, this place is crazy. So this is the material world, and we have a body made of these temporary elements, which will be turned into into practically nothing when we after we leave this body. But we, the pure spirit soul, are by nature lovers of God, and we should understand that this is our identity, that we are pure spiritual beings, and we have no success in acting in the temporary material realm of existence, because all of our activities lead to ultimately to frustration or defeat. That is the nature of this material world. Even the greatest from the material point of view will turn into one of these things: ashes, worms, stool. So all of these nice things are there, even for the most beautiful, so-called beautiful bodies in this material world. And when we leave this material body, we give it up completely. We have nothing to do with it anymore. So whatever happens to it, we're not even experiencing that. We're going somewhere else. And if we become Krishna conscious by dedicating our time, energy, resources, and life to the service of the Lord, then we qualified ourselves to the realm of eternal existence, which is complementary of our nature. We live in a temporary world, but we are eternal. So therefore, we cannot find happiness, satisfaction, longevity, anything in this world. We can only find it in the same world that is complementary of our nature, and that is in the spiritual world. The qualifications for entering into the spiritual world is to serve the king of the spiritual world. Just like if you live in a particular country, you have to follow the laws of the land. And the laws of the land are given by the ruling class. And usually the ruling class is headed by a particular individual who makes the laws. So in the same way, the kingdom of God is a place where God is king, and not in this world. Therefore, we try to take his position by coming to this world and acting like he is. We think we're the enjoyer. We think we are the controller. We think that by our plans we can successfully perform these two activities. But nobody can stay here. Even the greatest kings, as it says here, their bodies will turn into these different things. And they have to leave, and maybe who knows what type of form they'll get in their next life. It could be, there was one prime minister of India, and one astrologer, after this prime minister died, said that he became a dog in Sweden. They did a follow-away, but this expert astrologer said he was a dog for one very rich person who was living in Sweden. So one time he's a king, all right, or a president of a particular country. In the next life, he's passing stool in the alleyway and barking to express himself. So who knows? As Prabhupada said, one's never sure what body one will get in the next life. You have no control of that. Karma daiva natrena. When you leave this body, you are simply under the control of either the material energy, or if you happen to be Krishna conscious, then you're under the control of the spiritual energy. Spiritual energy will take you back to your existence in the realm of eternal happiness, knowledge, and love. And we stay in this world, we have to again repeat that same program of eating, sleeping, mating, defending, worrying, and dying in this world. So it's not a nice place. Can never be a nice place. There are so many people in this world, and most people don't even like each other. It's a place where everyone's in jail, and the prisoners don't like the other prisoners because the other prisoners have a different type of crime that I have. Therefore, I should associate only with those prisoners who are the same type of criminal that I am. And therefore, we get family members, according to our karma, who have the same criminal records that we do. And then we start our life of imprisonment in this world, acting out our criminal activities again by trying to present ourselves as being independent of our actual source, Sri Krishna himself. Now, this is a very ridiculous place. That's why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati used to say, "Here world is no place for a gentleman or a gentle lady." In other words, one who has some understanding of what is the purpose of life and who I am. This place is not for that person. So therefore, there are billions, we can't really count. There are unlimited living entities. There's one number. If you want to make a number that describes infinity, you take the number 17 and you put 15 zeros after it. Hundreds, thousands, millions, billions, trillions. And then even higher than that, there's another set of numbers. So 17, 15 zeros means a number that designates infinity. So there's infinite in numbers of living entities, but how many actually come to this world to try to express their independence by creating an environment separate from their actual environment, the spiritual world, and Krishna. very, very, very few. And when we think in terms of limitations, we think, oh, there's so many living beings in this world, and there's so many planets, and there's so many universes, and there's so many living entities all over. It's uncountable. Yes, it is. Even within the realm of limitation, the number is uncountable. But therefore, as it's explained, the world of creation is 1/4 of the actual existence, the complete existence, or the source of existence is the spiritual world, which makes up 3/4 of creation. And there are uncountable living entities there. The number, there's no such number. You can't even, and these are all, this is just shows how unlimited God is, that from him, these finite living beings known as the Jiva souls are coming. And the number is, we are in this material world, we also have unlimited counting numbers, but still, we are in such a small proportion in respect to the number of living entities in existence. So therefore, we think we're so great. We have a little bit of money. We got a nice place to live. We got some sex life. We got some food. We can show off our existence to other people and try to impress others by who we are or what we're doing. And it's just like a cartoon that is completely ridiculous. But those who actually are intelligent can act, those who are situated in the spiritual process, in the spiritual realm, look at the foolish materialists and think, boy, what a waste of life. What a ridiculous existence. What an illusory form of happiness. And so they look at it, they look at those who are actually intelligent. They look at the foolish living entities as being what they are, completely foolish. So therefore, while one is in this material world, one should become Krishna conscious, that's all. Whatever time you have, become Krishna conscious. Don't waste it trying to play with the illusionary energy and just waste time, that's all. Take care of your material body as a source of your the home you live in, just like if you live in a house, you make sure the house is in good condition, it's clean, everything operates nicely. So as a resident of the house, you want to make sure that the house is livable. So we live in this body, so we have to give it some food, we have to give it some rest, we give it some sense gratification in a minimal way to maintain it. And ultimately, we defend it in so many ways from all of the other forces in this world that are trying to destroy it. And somehow we live in this crazy place called the material world. We should give up this idea that there's any way, stop wasting time trying to be happy here. Stop making plans in the future that things will get better and I'll enjoy more in this material world. Or let me have this and let me go this way. Let me be with this person. Let me do this. So many plans and so many ideas. The material world presents unlimited ideas on the activities you can perform and how many ways you'll enjoy if you perform the activities accordingly. So this is the crazy house. It's a mad place. Therefore, in order to become sane again, one has to practice Krishna consciousness with utmost attention and with utmost regularity. One should not give any time to the illusion and simply focus on the goal of life, because whatever time is left in the body that we have is running out day by day. and soon it'll be gone. When, of course, we don't know how long that'll be. For some, it'll be very soon. For others, maybe a little bit longer. But for everyone, it will end at a certain time. So whatever time we have, focus on Krishna by chanting the holy names of the Lord, looking for devotees who are like you, associate with them, and share Krishna consciousness by serving together, by helping to give other living entities the chance to get out of the illusion also. Reading wonderful books like Srimad Bhagavatam and other books, teaching us how to live in this world and become successful. And eating food that is offered to God in sacrifice, it's known as prashadam. Prashadam means the mercy of the Lord. Not eating these the remnants of the material energy, which is full of bad results. When we eat food that is not connected to Krishna, we create more karma in our material life, or more difficulties. Mind becomes polluted. The body doesn't really respond in a positive way, and we're just furthering our material existence through the process of wrong style of eating. So Krishna is so merciful, he comes and he leaves his remnants after it's being offered to him. And therefore we enjoy this foodstuffs, and as a way to elevate our consciousness towards the spiritual realm. Now, if we live in this process of Krishna consciousness, focus completely on these spiritual activities, maintaining our body to the least amount of time and energy, then we will maximize the value of this human form of life, and which will qualify us to go back home, back to Godhead, and not waste time trying to build our sandcastles, which will be washed away by the waves of time. Okay, Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Maharaj, for just another wonderful class, reminding us about how temporary this material life and this material body is, and reminding us that we should not waste time. Thank you so much. Dear devotees, there's a lot of food for thought here. If you have any realizations, questions, comments, thoughts, please do share them with us, and Maharaj will be happy to answer you. I don't see any hands raised, Maharaj. If I may ask a question while devotees are thinking, Maharaj, the Bible also says the same thing, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, though goest thou, like that, something like that. So even the holy scriptures in other traditions are warning us that this is the end. You're going to come to this end. You came from dust, you're going to go back to dust. So in the interim, become God conscious. But yet, Christians, in spite of having all the injunctions that they should not do so many things, they have no compunction in eating meat and going hunting, fishing, doing all kinds of activities, and actually enjoying and relishing whatever they collect like that and eating it. So how we can understand this sort of dichotomy?
Their scriptures have been changed and altered by secular principles coming down through time, political, social movements like that. Various types of interventions from materialistic forces which influences. So therefore we have to also be careful as a tradition. Prabhupada said no illicit sex, no intoxication, no meat eating, no gambling, as the foundation for following the activities of the devotee in Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada made it clear, strong, and emphasized these four principles. He said we must seriously practice avoiding these four sinful activities, as he said, which is the basis of all sinful activities. These are on the gross level. On the subtle level, we should be chanting Hare Krishna so we don't get involved with envy, criticism, various types of wrong emotions, such as anger or greediness, all of these things. So we follow strictly chanting 16 rounds, 16 good rounds, and with 4 regulative principles. We won't fall victim to other traditions which have been perverted and aborted or abrogated in the course of time by social and political forces have intervened into these societies and have recreated a different lifestyle for the practitioners, which they accept as normal. So we have to be very careful.
Yes, Manoj, thank you for that warning. And as you were speaking, I was remembering how Srila Prabhupada said, the meat eaters, they're so dull-headed, they cannot understand spiritual topics.
Yeah, as long as one is committing violence against other living entities, one is not qualified for spiritual knowledge. Real spiritual knowledge.
So dear devotees, if you have any questions, your comments, or you want to share your thoughts on these topics, please feel free to go ahead. If you're not able to speak, please write it in the chat and we can read it out, Maharaj. Please don't hesitate. We have many, many devotees online.
Have 12, actually. Okay, no questions, no comments. All right, well, I guess we can end here if there's no questions.
Well, Maharaj, if I may just ask one more question, if you don't mind. Just as the Christians have their Bible, the Mohammedans, the Muslims have their Quran, and the Jews have their, what is that, Talmud or Torah, whatever it is. So it can be, because they're all meat eaters and they don't know these regulative principles, can we conclude that all the scriptures have been tampered with and manipulated so that, they can get away with all this stuff? Is there any pure?
There are pure Christians, there are pure Islamic followers, there are pure Jewish people. They make up a smaller section of the tradition that they follow. And so there are that, but as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his discussion with Chankasi showed that the Vedic scriptures are eternal, for many of these other scriptures are created in the course of time within this world. That's in that discussion between Chankasi and Lord Chaitanya. But the Vedas are coming from Krishna himself through Brahma. Tene Brahma Hida Adikabaye. Krishna spoke Vedic knowledge to Brahma within the heart. And by his meditation, he understood the essence of that knowledge and then went on to do his service as the secondary creator. So all knowledge is ultimately coming from Veda. Because knowledge is eternal. Knowledge is eternal. Knowledge doesn't come in a certain time period. But then there are created forms of knowledge which go on as spiritual knowledge. So that knowledge is deficient because it is not eternal. It's created from time, place, and circumstance. Therefore, you see many of the proponents of different religious traditions teach only a certain level according to the followers at that time. Muhammad taught, don't sleep with your mother. but people were following incest at that time. He was preaching to people living in the desert. Christ taught, love your brother. If you want to love your father, you have to love your brother as you would love your father. Do unto others as you have them do unto you. You can't have love for your father if you do not love your brother. So he taught brotherly love. But what did Krishna say to Arjuna? You know, he taught him the difference between the soul and the body and the activities of a person who is in knowledge, which is ultimately to take up one's practice of devotional service. So Krishna gave knowledge on higher levels than that was done before in other forms. So each one of these traditions were created according to time, place, and circumstance, according to the level of mentality of the people at the time. So Krishna sends these proponents, and then they start some preaching, and then there is a particular set of religious principles they establish, and people gather around that, and then it becomes a standard religion. Like that. But true religious principles is that the soul is eternal. The soul exists in all living bodies, no matter what material or religious designation you may be in. And that soul is part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, God. Call him Allah, call him Yahweh, call him Jehovah, call him Krishna, Rama, same person.
Thank you Maharaj, for that clarification of different religions and how the traditions have been actually polluted because of the effects of Kali Yuga. Dear Maharaj,
That's why Prabhupada was very strong. When Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati left the planet, he didn't really get a chance to establish a force that would continue the way he wanted it. He didn't establish what he called the governing body commission. And therefore there was fights amongst the leaders on who was the next Acharya, and the whole thing disintegrated. And the Gaudiya Math wound up breaking into so many maths. They became the Gaudiya Math, but each math was independent of the other maths. And some of them were following up to a certain point, some were following a little differently. So Prabhupada saw that, and he didn't want that to happen to ISKCON. So he established the governing body commission to be the supreme managerial head by which they don't establish religious principles, but they upheld religious principles like that. So we have a very solid organizational what we call it, structure. If we follow Prabhupada's instructions carefully, both in the principles of execution, devotional service, and the managerial principles that allow for us to stay united, then we can change the whole world, because we have the substance. That's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings. Krishna's teachings, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings, same thing. So Prabhupada was highly intelligent, not only in preaching Krishna consciousness, but establishing a society which would not be destroyed by external forces. Although people have tried in so many ways to destroy it. So many times our movement has been attempted to be destroyed, individually, collectively. But because the GBC continues to withhold the Prabhupada standard of organization, management, and activity, then we can remain strong as a solid unit, even though we may disagree on certain principles. One thing we agree that everyone should chant 16 rounds on beads every day, follow 4 principles, work under the guidance of their spiritual master. These are fundamental principles that are unchangeable.
Thank you, Maharaj. We have
Yeah.
Rishabh.
And these things are still being challenged even today within our society and from without. Therefore, the next generation after Prabhupada's disciples must understand clearly Prabhupada's instructions and come up to the standard to work in such a way as to continue what Srila Prabhupada started in a way that propagates his teachings and his organizational development in such a way that it doesn't deteriorate by being infiltrated by persons who have other ideas on how the society goes on. Like somebody says, well, we don't have to follow 4 regulative principles. We reject that person immediately. He's immediately rejected, disqualified, has no voice.
Right.
To chant 16 rounds a day, then we just say that person is he's just an agent of Kali.
So Maharaj, when we hear so many things that are, confusing, like, oh, how can the GBC do this? Or how can the GBC make that decision? Or how can so many changes be made in Prabhupada's books? Now there's such an uproar about all the changes that were made in the books, all the editing that has been done. Srila Prabhupada said no change, but all these changes have been made in the book. So it's a very confusing time actually for us.
You're bringing up a very controversial subject because Prabhupada didn't say that. He said make the changes in the language so everything is clear. Because the original writers of the scriptures actually didn't hear Prabhupada speak clearly and made mistakes in what he actually said. So some very intelligent, sincere devotees took up the work to clarify everything. And then they also documented their changes in other writings showing how it doesn't deviate from the essence of what Prabhupada said, it just changes the language. So it is clear. Like Prabhupada said, the pit trees, and they wrote Planet of the Trees. That's one example. And there's statements and other things that the translators heard wrongly from Prabhupada. And Prabhupada knew it. And so he said, just clear out these. So these are not changes in the books, there's just changes in the wordings to bring it back to what Srila Prabhupada intended.
Yes, Maharaj, that's clear now. So Rishabh Prabhu is asking a question. Hare Krishna, dear Gurudev and God family. Question. It seems that most of devotees act on Jnanamaya level of acting through the mind and they become sentimental while practicing Krishna consciousness. Is that so, Gurudev? As I don't see many devotees in Croatia on the level of Vijnanamaya, knowing the difference between matter and spirit. Any comments to clear my doubts?
Well, yeah, therefore devotee is supposed to be Shastra Chakshus, seeing things not through the eyes, or through the temporary sentiments that appear within the mind, but through scripture. Shastra Chakshus, seeing through knowledge, not seeing through these temporary 2 little balls, which we call eyes. That's real seeing. We can't see, actually, because we're limited. But we can see through higher knowledge, which is given to us by Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So different cultures around the world maybe still have it yet to understand things and get away from their cultural trappings and act on the platform of knowledge. Because with knowledge, you see things clearly. Prabhupada said things that were controversial, but when you apply them according to the teachings that he gave, you'll see how they actually are practical and elevating one in spiritual life. Prabhupada was a self-realized person. He was the messenger of Krishna coming to do this work on behalf of Lord Chaitanya. He was sent to do this work, and he was highly qualified, and he showed by his highly qualified acumen how in such 12 short years he established a worldwide movement with books, with temples, with preaching centers, with schools, so many other things that came. He supplanted the traditional Vedic culture into the Western society, which was practically impossible to do. But Prabhupada was successful because he preached on the spiritual platform and not on the material platform. We are not Croatian, we are not American, we're not Indian, we are not, whatever bodily designation we have, we are pure spiritual beings. Prabhupada taught on that level and wanted us to come up to that level of practice. We have a tendency to, I'm just using a general statement, there's a tendency to too much emphasis on the bodily and mind, and not enough emphasis on the intelligence, which is the feature of transcendental vision. You have to go above the mind into the intelligence. That's why Rupa Goswami explains that the intelligence is the connection between the soul and the activities in this world. Unless we're acting on the intelligent platform, not on the mental platform, not on the sensual platform, not on the bodily platform. These three other platforms are of the illusionary energy. You have to act on the intelligent platform. That's where Prabhupada said, this movement is for intelligent people, not for fools and rascals. And if you don't have intelligence, read the books and get some. Hear from the great souls and understand things.
So he asked as a follow-up, what is the best way to elevate devotees to Vijnana Maya? Is it reading Srila Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam?
Yeah, have seminars, have discussions and seminars, programs teaching people the principles that Krishna taught in the Bhagavad Gita, the principles that Sukadeva Goswami taught in Srimad Bhagavatam. Study the Bhagavatam, study the scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita, Nectar of Devotion, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada said 4 books. Everything is there in these 4 books. He said, if you don't read the books, you'll go back to eating and sleeping, and you'll lose the opportunity for transcendental life. Prabhupada's given us everything. We just have to do it, take it. If we don't take it, we don't get the benefit. We sit down in front of a plate of food to eat, and people are describing what's on the plate. If you just sit there looking at it and listening to the description, you don't get the benefit. You have to take it. If you don't know how to take it, then there's just like there are now books on how to study Bhagavad Gita, how to understand the knowledge given in Srimad Bhagavatam. There are devotees who are writing about there, how to study scripture, what is the benefit of studying scripture? What is the purpose of studying scripture? How important it is to seek out the association of advanced devotees and hear from them. How many are doing that? We're spending all day working, making money, and we're not even associating with devotees. We think our job and our family is the most important thing in life. And then we complain we're having so much trouble in Krishna consciousness. The devotees are traveling around the world and going into different places so people could take advantage of their association and hear from them. But we don't take advantage of them. Only a very few actually take advantage. The Western mind mentality is just still so much oriented to family and work as being the most important thing in life. Even in India, it's becoming like that. It hasn't really fallen so far away from that. When a sannyasi or an elevated devotee or someone comes to a temple, the whole place becomes electrified. And so many programs go on and people come. And there is so much time and emphasis to hear from them. But sometimes we have opportunities to associate and we don't. I don't have any time. Too busy making money. Too busy maintaining my family. Now, if you want that, then next life you get another family to maintain, another chance to make money.
And who knows whether we will get a human family, just like this leader who was again to birth as a dog in Sweden. We don't even know whether that family will be a pig family or a dog family or a bird family or some other family.
The point is not to waste time and become Krishna conscious. If you're not feeling happy in your execution of devotional service, then that means there is a lack in your devotional service. You should be feeling happy.
Dear Radha Vinodini, please go ahead. You've raised your hand.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Agores to Srila Prabhupada and Agores to you. You mentioned the importance of intelligence, and I was wondering that I've heard that the mind is connected with the mode of goodness, and the intelligence is connected with the mode of passion. So why is it that it's safer to follow the intelligence than to follow the mind? I mean, I understand that the intelligence is safer. It's just, I remember I was really surprised when I first heard this connection.
You have to understand the characteristics of each of those. The mind is thinking, feeling, and willing. The intelligence is discrimination and determination. These are the characteristics of the intelligence. It discriminates between what is beneficial and what is not, and becomes determined to carry out. So the mind can be led easily by these sense objects. The intelligence is a finer aspect of the mind, and using its discrimination, it can reject and focus on what is important and what is beneficial. Where the mind may gravitate simply to what is pleasant or what is attractive.
Mm-hmm. And do I understand properly that because the intelligence can calculate with future also, which is the nature of the mode of passion, so not just that, okay, this thing feels good now, but also takes into consideration what are the consequences. That's why it's better.
Yeah. To see the consequences before the activity is a feature of it. You're about to do something, and then you think, what will be the results?
Mhm.
And then you're motivated to move according to what is favorable,
Mhm. Okay, I
or not
understand.
or unfavorable.
Mhm. And also connected to this topic, that there are some people whose intelligence also doesn't. It's not good to follow that one also. So it's easier to properly train the intelligence than to properly train the.
Well, training intelligence in the right way will help to guide the mind. When the intelligence is focused on Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, it can guide the mind in that direction. But if the intelligence is not, it's also under the material energy, then you're in trouble because you have no help.
Mhm.
And then you have to go. And then if you have a little bit of intelligence left, then you go. That's why someone would say to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, I don't have any intelligence. Well, Prabhupada said, well, just get some. It's available.
Yeah, it's really useful. Yeah, I just remembered that in one class someone asked Bhutta Bhavana Prabhu about that. There are so intelligent people, and still they don't come to the conclusion that they should follow Krishna consciousness. And at that time, Bhutta Bhavana Prabhu mentioned that because the intelligence is the works of intelligence depends on what we feed the intelligence with. And yeah, it was also such a nice example to understand the difference between the nature of the mind and the intelligence.
Connect with the spiritual energy, and the intelligence will develop in that way. Connect with the material energy, the intelligence will develop in that way.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Very nice question, Radha Vinodini. Rishabh Prabhu is texting another question, or rather a comment. Interestingly enough, in Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned one can get intelligence by studying or by constant engagement in Krishna consciousness. Then Krishna gives intelligence from the heart.
Yeah. Yeah, Krishna is there to guide accordingly. He said, if you want knowledge, I give it. If you want forgetfulness, I give it. If you want remembrance, I give it. But you have to show which one you want by your activities.
How can we sharpen our spiritual intelligence more and more and more, Guru Maharaj?
By reading scripture.
Hmm.
And by associating with devotees and discussing these topics. Bodhyantas parasparam katyantas chamam nityam tushanti cha ramanti cha. This is one of the nutshell verses, fundamental verses in the Gita. About devotees dwell in me, their life surrendered unto me, and they derive great happiness and satisfaction and hearing about me and conversing about me. Just like I'm here in Ujjain, and they have a brahmachari ashram. So every day the brahmacharis have the brahmachari class. They also go to Srimad Bhagavatam. So they're hearing the scriptures from Bhagavatam in the morning. They have a daily class. And at night, many times there's also classes. So hearing regularly and discussing based on what one hears is a regular activity of Vaishnava. If we're not doing that, intelligence is going to get weak. When you use something, it gets strong. Just like those who are fighters, they know that they have to keep training every day to maintain their fighting ability. If they let off from a while, then their fighting ability also becomes less. It's a constant thing that they work on, and they become better as they work on it. And when they let go, they lose some of the things that they adopted. So using that example, same with spiritual knowledge. We have to stay connected with it. The more we do, the sharper we get, the more clear it gets. And the less we do, we will forget. We'll be more subjected to understanding things in the wrong way. Just like a person who is a fighter and fails to train might be easily defeated by someone who is weaker than them, because that person has been training.
Yes, Maharaj. On another note, maybe slightly different but connected, talking of brahmacharya ashram, is it true that only those brahmacharis who are very brahmanically inclined or who are sannyasi material, only they can make it in brahmacharya ashram, and the rest will all need the feminine energy to keep them inspired and encouraged in bhakti?
That's I don't know, that statement doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to me that, I think it comes from a sentimental platform rather than any actual scriptural or practical basis.
And the beginning of spiritual training is brahmacharya. And there are some people who will be inclined to stay in that ashram and develop there, and others can move into grihastha life. But those who haven't had brahmachari training and they enter into grihastha life, they might find the grihastha life very difficult because of that lack of training in the mood of renunciation. Which can take two particular extremes, too much and too little. You
So
understand?
from where does this concept come that, men need women to bolster them in bhakti and to keep them going? And similarly, women need men to bolster them and keep them going in bhakti, otherwise they cannot make it.
Now, someone asked a very senior devotee, what about brahmacharis? He says that behind every successful man is a woman. And the answer was Radharani is there for the brahmacharis. She teaches from the position of feminine energy, the mood of nurturing, the mood of sweetness. The soul is not a material gender. Soul is pure spiritual energy, which is influenced by the conditioned mind. So yeah, the Prabhupada said a devotee has to have the mind, a strong mind, and a soft heart. Arjuna on the battlefield, he had his heart was soft, but his mind became weak, and therefore Krishna criticized him. Now you're speaking, nice words, but I can say you're a fool because you don't know the difference between matter and spirit.
This is so interesting, Maharaj, the way you are explaining about intelligence, discrimination, mind, sentimentality. We are understanding it at so many different levels that we must really get our mind sharpened by virtue of the intelligence being sharpened so that we don't fall prey to some sentimental statements or to some propaganda or to some rhetoric, that is coming at us because now the internet is like buzzing with so much stuff. And it's so important for us to understand what is what.
Don't listen to the internet, and you won't have so many problems.
Right.
You think those who are advanced in Krishna consciousness listen to the internet so they can figure out what's not right? They don't bother with that. They just focus on the essence. And if some challenges come up, they're already ready, they're equipped to understand and deal with it. It's not, you don't have to go into the bathroom just to understand that that's a place for passing stool. You take the word, the bathroom is a place for passing stool and urine. So you know that. So you don't have to go in there and check it out and see what the stool and urine is about.
This is such an important warning. I'm so thankful to hear these words, Maharaj. Really, really thankful to you. Very important point that we must studiously avoid all those things which are unfavorable for our Krishna consciousness and very diligently stick to those things that are favorable for our Krishna consciousness.
Gossip, criticism, useless talks. Rupa Goswami explains in the Nectar of Instruction that Prajalpa is one of the ways where bhakti is destroyed. One of the main ways, actually.
I think it's very important to have affirmations like this that we stick on the wall and look at so that we know when the attacks come, hey, no going there. Don't fall prey to this. This is not good for your Krishna consciousness because simply hearing, we might forget. But when we write it down or make a note of it or put some, sticky notes to remind us like a black and white visual aid, I think it's very helpful. So I think I'm going to write this down and stick it on the wall.
And read it too.
Yes. Yes.
Well, don't just fill up your wall and then you have a wall full of sayings. And someone asks you, what does they say? I don't know, but I wrote it down. It's there somewhere.
Oh, Krishna, Krishna. Yes, Maharaj. Thank you for that reminder too. This Kali Yuga brain being what it is, we can, make so many resolutions and then not even understand why we are doing what we are doing. Yeah, so true.
Rishab made a nice point. He said, sense gratification helps us to forget. So although we are getting so much information, we forget all of that because we're still engaged in trying to satisfy our senses. We fall into, we have a bad experience due to sense gratification. We make a note of that experience saying that we're going to avoid falling into it again. But then what happens, we engage in some more sense gratification, which makes us forget what we did before, and we fall into it again. You have to stop the sense gratification.
Dear devotees, all of you are listening very intently. Surely you have some thoughts to share or reflections, realizations, comments. Or if you have any questions, now is the time to ask real quick. Ajudacharya is thinking very much. Huh? Radha Vinodini, go ahead.
Thank you very much. So this question of memory, memorizing things, just brought the question to me that how can we improve our memory? So is being more strict about not fall victim to sense gratification, or learning verses, or how it's possible to make our memory better?
Well, Krishna is also the source of memory. He says that I give you remembrance. The more you connect with Krishna, the more you are in the pathway of remembrance. He also reminds us, don't do this or do this. He's telling us this all the time.
So the problem is that we don't pay attention to what he's telling, or?
Well, the problem is we have more attraction to the activity, and therefore we minimize the instruction, or we forget the instruction.
Mm-hmm.
We make the same mistake over and over again because we're still attached to our same way of doing things. Just like it's understood that a devotee will think, I'm always getting the same results all the time. Well, yeah, because you're doing the same thing all the time. If you change the activity, you change the result.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. So even though we are great learned scholars, we write everything down, we study so many things. If we're still engaged in sense gratification, we'll still be victimized by the material energy and fall into the same patterns that we're trying to get out of. That was a good point made by Rishabh Dev. It's a very fundamental point. We're spending so much time to become Krishna conscious, but we're still trying to satisfy our senses in a material way, and therefore we become forgetful. We don't even know we're forgetful. Radha Vinodini, you're back?
Yes. Yeah, it just what you said made me think that, yeah, actually, I remember this verse from the Gita when Krishna speaks about that this lasting desires lead to anger, and at one point it leads to loss of memory. So it really makes sense. And
Perfect.
was.
Yeah, perfect. Those two verses in the second chapter, verse 260, 263. Dayatam visayam pumsam teshu sangat sajayate kama krodha bijayate krodha bhavati samoham shriti brahmsa buddhinasa panashyati. Panashyati means falls down. Those two verses, you just from contemplating the objects of the senses, lust develops. From lust, anger. From anger, delusion. From delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one again falls down into the material pool.
But it just made me think that we also read that that from knowledge comes that we start to control our senses. So somehow I just have this feeling I don't know where to start, or because once
start by improving the quality of your japa.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, thank you. It's practical.
Bhakti Vinod Thakur explains that here's the place to start right there.
Mm-hmm.
work on attentive chanting.
Mhm. Okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. Dear devotees, thank you also very much for coming for this daily call. We pray that you will be there again tomorrow. And we pray that Krishna gives us all intelligence to remember him constantly and not fall prey to Maya. Thank you, Maharaj. This was such a wonderful class with so many takeaway points. There's so much to reflect on and to apply. Thank you so much. Our humble obeisances to you, dear Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you
Hare
very
Krishna.
much.
As Christ said, one cannot serve two masters.
Yes, yes, so true. Thank you, Maharaj.
Ekala Asa Brita. Krishna is the only master. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.
Jai.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Guru
Guru
Maharaj.
Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all, dear devotees. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.